Now we start with Europe. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says the European Union's central role in securing peace for Ukraine must be fully reflected in any future agreement. She stresses that Ukraine must have the freedom and the sovereign right to choose its own destiny without pressure or compromise. Her statement comes as Ukrainian, US and European leaders meet in Geneva for crucial talks on a possible peace plan aimed at ending the long-running conflict. Von der Leyen has reiterated that any durable peace must be based on Ukraine's territorial integrity and international law. She further added that the EU will continue to back Ukraine politically and economically and militarily as diplomatic efforts enter a new phase. Let's listen in.
Neutrality.
We welcome Professor Andrew Latham. He's an international relations expert, joins us live from Minneapolis. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, Professor, as we know, U.S. delegation is currently pursuing peace talks with Ukraine, while the attacks on both sides are ongoing. Do you think anything will come out of these talks that are being held? And would it be realistically feasible to implement those?
Well, I think this is a moment of guarded optimism. It seems that the tone in both Kyiv and Moscow has shifted a little bit, perhaps in Brussels and Washington as well. Everybody seems more inclined to get to a deal. Everybody seems a little more inclined to compromise on their sort of hardline positions. As always with these sorts of talks, anything could happen or might not happen. But I'm guardedly optimistic at this moment. I think exhaustion is setting in across Europe, and that includes Russia. And when that happens, war termination becomes far more likely.
Right. And building on that, while we know that they are still discussing the talks, do you think that who should be the guarantor, if there could be a guarantor for Ukraine?
Well, it won't be NATO as such. It may be NATO partner or member states making bilateral commitments, the Coalition of the Willing, for example. Ultimately, I think the Ukrainians would prefer it if there was an American backstop, to use the language that was being used a while back. American security guarantees. I'm not sure that's in the offing. And that leaves, I guess, the European Union as the only other institution. And that, of course, although Ursula von der Leyen would love it to be more militarily capable, it's not primarily a security and defense organization. The Russians seem to have less concern about Ukraine being associated with the European Union. For them, a red line still is association with NATO, so it won't be a NATO security guarantee, I don't think, anyway.
Well, what do we know so far about what is included in the peace proposal made by U.S.?
Well, the 28-point peace plan had 28 points, but it boiled down to this. Accepting the realities on the ground, that Russia now occupies most of the two oblasts that are most important to it, Donetsk and Luhansk.
No.
It's willing to give up some of that territory, as long as it was guaranteed that it could hold on to the remainder of the territory. One of the points was, the language is a bit vague at times, but one of the points was that Ukraine would not become a NATO member. Another point was that the international community would recognize that the two oblasts or provinces, Donetsk and Luhansk, as well as Crimea, would be legally recognized as parts of the Russian Federation. So that would be accepted by the broader international community. Those are the main themes. There are some, obviously 20 or so other points there, but those are the main themes. And really what it comes down to is Ukraine having to accept that it's lost on the battlefield, Russia having to accept that it has not won everything it wanted on the battlefield, and that they can both live for the foreseeable future with the status quo, what's basically what has materialized over the last 4 years on the battlefield.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Professor Andrew Latham for joining us and sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, viewers, let's listen in to von der Leyen on this.
The centrality of the European Union in securing peace for Ukraine must be fully reflected. Ukraine must have the freedom and sovereign right to choose its own destiny. They have chosen a European destiny. It starts with the country's reconstruction, its integration into our single market and our defense industrial base,